It's fall, my ghouls and goblins. We should be reading poetry, and preferably in black dresses, in the forest, together. But this is take this as your invitation, and let's get into some wonderful poetry books you should be reading for fall. Okay, so the first poet we're going to be talking about is Edgar Allan Poe. This is his collection, The Raven and Other Poems. Most of Poe's work are put into collections by like popular houses or just any, publishing house because he's very old. But The Raven is his most notable poem, and when you tend to buy a collection of his works, you will see The Raven first because it's his most iconic, rightfully so. Um, what I love about he's my favorite poet of all time. What I love about his writing style is that yes, he's dark and spooky, but I love his rhyme scheme. It's synonymous with his style. And I love how creepy and haunting his poems are because it's because of his descriptions that he uses. And I love his imagery, a part of the descriptions. Like when you read a poem from him, he's not going to describe white curtains blowing in the wind. He's gonna be like the curtains blew hauntingly slow in the night. Like there's like an atmosphere he creates with his poems that I love. You should be reading him, especially in October. It would be criminal for you to not read him during October. My favorite poems, specifically from this collection, I'm sure you've seen this on Pinterest. I have. But my favorite poems from him are The Raven and The Sleeper. You should check those out. Our next poet is a woman, and this is Tracy Brumhall's Our Lady of the Ruins. This book of poems is amazing. You should especially read this as a woman. Especially if you are a woman who grew up in a religious household. You'll understand deep what she's talking about. Um, my favorite poems from her are Hysteria, A Requiem, and Our Lady of the Ruins. I love her work because I love the way her poems look. And this is something that I learned in undergrad, which is how expansive and like nuanced poetry truly is because you can have so much control over a poem. You can control the way it physically looks and therefore how someone reads it. You can control the reader's pace. And I think she's goated. She's great at that. Like she's amazing. Um, just giving you an example. I specifically really love the way Our Lady of the Ruins looks because it's almost like a second poem here, but everything's connected and you can read it multiple ways. I feel. Um, I love her. She's great. I love her descriptions. I love how she uses this book to talk about how the patriarchy is very much tied to religion and how both those entities affect how we as women see and experience God, how we associate him with men in power and men in our everyday lives, and how we as women have this feeling that we want to almost move away from that. Not even almost, but definitely if we could rewrite it, how would it look? I think she does an incredible job at that. You should definitely be reading her for fall because it's very eerie, some of her poems. And it's sharp and it's poignant and it's look at this cover. Amazing. You should be reading her. Next I have W. Todd Kaneko. This is How the Bones Sing. This is actually written by a professor of mine back when I was in my undergrad. I had never read any of my professor's works in their entirety. Like I've read poems, like separate poems, but never like an entire work. And this kind of spawned me to start reading more because you really see why your professors are your professors. This taught me something I had never in my life heard of about American history and specifically Asian American history. This first, my favorite poems, which I found hard to pick. I'm picking two for each book, but it was hard to pick just two. My favorites are American Sentences and Ghost Story. This book is about how during the Second World War, I believe it was, the U.S. government incarcerated over 100,000 people of Japanese ancestry. And they put them into relocation camps, but they were actually concentration camps. And in this book, he's exploring how that trauma, egregious trauma, affected not only his community, but his family, and the poem that I think does that the best, that shows generational trauma, is Ghost Story. Because he's tracking how there's this history, right? And then how that's carried through your grandparents to your parents to you as a parent, like he is a father, and how he's gonna explain this to his children. I had never what this made me reminded me when I read this was how poetry truly is a vessel. And through it you can not only just appreciate language and words and show pain, and you can show the effects of something. You should be reading this again during fall. We read poems, especially, and I think this is one that everyone should be reading. I'm about to fangirl. Danez Smith, Don't Call Us Dead. This is the first work of his that I have read in its entirety. I was already a fan by this point. I was already a fan, and then during my undergrad, one of my professors had us read this. And Danez Smith is my favorite living poet. I think he genuinely is the greatest poet of our current time. And I'm saying that with all my chest. Like, I'm a huge fan. Huge. My favorite poems in here are Dinosaurs in the Hood. I feel like that's one. If you follow Poetry Button, I believe it's called on YouTube, that was where I first heard him read it, if I'm correct. And then I love ... nigga. And if you ain't black, don't say that word. This is another one that I found really hard to pick two of. I'm gonna give one more. It Won't Be a Bullet. I mean, I feel like if you read poems, especially if you're really into like black queer poetry, you've read Danez Smith, but if you have not, you should read this. I think especially black queer folks, nothing in here will not resonate with you. And for me personally, how I felt reading it was I kept thinking like, these are things that I felt that I have never heard anyone put words to, is how I would describe this. Necessary reading. And there's so many other poems that I can share with you guys, and I will over time. God willing, I will. Thank you. That is all for today, my ghouls and goblins. Continue to dance in the forest, specifically my neck of the woods. Go to my Substack if you want to read my own poems and poetry advice that is written by me. Pay for that subscription. Pay for artists. And that is Latanya's neck of the woods. I think I'll put it up there. And randomly, this dress and these earrings are from Shop Cider. So I love them for fall. Love their sweaters and dresses. You should really get into that. And other than that, like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me down below what you think is necessary poetry that should be read during fall or period. And if you've read any of these, tell me your favorite poems in them.